One second I was driving through a lonely stretch of highway under a gray afternoon sky, thinking about getting home in time for dinner with my wife, and the next, my truck jerked violently before rolling to a helpless stop on the shoulder. Cars rushed past as if I didn't exist, shaking my vehicle with every blast of wind. My phone showed only 23% battery. There wasn't a gas station in sight. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, feeling strangely uneasy, as if that breakdown was about to become much more than an inconvenience. Looking back now, I realize that getting stranded on that highway became the turning point that saved more than my broken truck. It quietly saved my marriage, my faith in people, and even a part of myself I thought had disappeared forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still exists and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Dad's Second Chance. Your support helps us continue sharing heartfelt stories that remind us the world is still full of good people. My name is Ethan. I was 39 years old, married to my incredible wife, Claire, and the father of 2 energetic children who somehow made every exhausting day worth living. Life wasn't perfect. In fact, it had become painfully ordinary. Between work deadlines, mortgage payments, school events, and endless responsibilities, Claire and I had quietly drifted into the routine so many couples fall into. We still loved each other deeply, but we rarely had the time or energy to actually show it. That afternoon I called Claire, expecting her comforting voice to tell me she'd figure something out. Instead, she answered sounding breathless and worried. She explained that our youngest son had suddenly developed a high fever during school, and she was already at the pediatric clinic waiting for the doctor. She apologized over and over, clearly feeling guilty for not being able to help. I told her not to worry. The kids always came first. Just as I was preparing to call a towing company, Claire stopped me. She quietly said she had already texted someone who might be nearby. Before I could even ask who, she simply said it was her best friend, Olivia. I barely knew Olivia. She had been Claire's closest friend since college. We'd met at birthdays, holiday dinners, and neighborhood barbecues over the years, but our conversations had never gone beyond polite greetings. She was divorced, worked as a physical therapist, and always seemed calm in a way that made stressful situations feel smaller. She was kind, but distant enough that I never imagined she'd interrupt her day for me. 25 minutes later, a silver SUV pulled onto the shoulder behind my truck. Olivia stepped out wearing jeans, sneakers, and a navy jacket, carrying an insulated coffee cup in one hand and a small toolbox in the other. She smiled as though helping stranded people on highways was simply part of her afternoon routine. The sight alone made me feel unexpectedly relieved. She admitted she wasn't a mechanic, but she believed 2 people thinking calmly were often more useful than one person panicking alone. That simple sentence somehow eased the frustration that had been building inside me for the last hour. Together we checked the battery, looked for loose connections, searched under the hood, and tried everything we could think of. Nothing worked. Instead of complaining about the wasted trip, Olivia sat on the guardrail beside me while we waited for the tow truck. The silence wasn't awkward. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about emails, deadlines, bills, or unfinished projects. I was simply sitting beside another human being watching clouds drift across the sky. Eventually we started talking. She asked about my children. She asked how Claire had really been doing. At first I gave the automatic answers everyone gives. Busy. Fine. Managing. But something about that empty highway made pretending feel pointless. I admitted that Claire and I had been exhausted for a long time. We weren't fighting. We weren't angry. We were simply surviving each week instead of living it. Somewhere between raising children and paying bills, we'd forgotten how to be husband and wife instead of business partners managing a household. Olivia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she didn't criticize either of us. She simply smiled sadly and said that Claire talked about me with incredible love, even during the hardest weeks. She said Claire constantly worried that she wasn't giving enough of herself to our family, even though everyone around her believed she already gave everything she had. Hearing that felt like someone had quietly opened a window inside my heart. I'd been so focused on my own exhaustion that I'd never stopped to consider how lonely Claire might have been too. The tow truck finally arrived nearly 90 minutes later. The driver informed us that the repair shop would probably keep my truck overnight because the fuel pump had completely failed. Without hesitation, Olivia offered to drive me home. The ride back became one of the most meaningful conversations I'd had in years. She never acted like a counselor. She never pretended to have answers. Instead, she shared her own story. After her divorce, she realized relationships rarely collapse because of one dramatic moment. Most slowly fade beneath thousands of tiny disappointments left unspoken. People stop asking meaningful questions. They stop noticing each other's invisible struggles. They assume tomorrow will always offer another chance to reconnect. Sometimes tomorrow never comes. Her words stayed with me long after she dropped me off. Claire returned home later that evening carrying our sleepy son in her arms. The doctor had diagnosed nothing serious. Just a stubborn viral infection. After putting the children to bed, Claire apologized again for not coming herself. For the first time in months, instead of brushing the conversation aside, I hugged her tightly. I told her I understood. Really understood. That night we talked for nearly 3 hours. Not about bills. Not about schedules. Not about chores. We talked about fear. About burnout. About dreams we'd forgotten. About the people we used to be before life became one endless checklist. It felt as though the broken truck had somehow repaired something much more valuable. The following weekend I surprised Claire by arranging childcare and taking her back to the small lakeside diner where we'd had one of our first dates almost 15 years earlier. There were no expensive gifts. No grand romantic gestures. Just uninterrupted conversation. We laughed until closing time. Over the following months we made small promises to each other. Phones stayed away during dinner. Friday evenings became family movie nights. Once every month we planned a simple date, even if it was only coffee at sunrise or walking through the park holding hands. None of those changes were dramatic. Together, they quietly transformed our marriage. I also found myself becoming friends with Olivia. Not because of anything inappropriate, but because genuine gratitude often grows into lasting respect. She became like family. The children adored her. Claire loved having her closest friend around more often. And every Thanksgiving, someone inevitably retold the story about the day my truck stranded me in the middle of nowhere. Everyone laughed. Only I truly understood how much had changed because of those few unexpected hours. Nearly 2 years later, I drove past that same stretch of highway. The shoulder looked exactly the same. Most drivers probably saw nothing remarkable about it. But I pulled over for just a minute. I stood beside the road listening to cars rush past and realized that life rarely announces its biggest blessings. Sometimes they arrive disguised as inconvenience. Sometimes they wear the face of someone you barely know. Sometimes help doesn't come from the person you expected. It comes from the person willing to simply ask, "How can I help?" That question carries extraordinary power. It reminds us we were never meant to carry life's burdens alone. Looking back now, I don't remember the frustration of the breakdown. I remember the kindness. The patience. The conversations. The second chance my marriage never knew it desperately needed. If my truck had never broken down that afternoon, Claire and I might have continued drifting apart without ever noticing the distance growing between us. Instead, one unexpected act of compassion redirected the course of our family's future. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with flashing lights. Sometimes they quietly park behind you on the side of a lonely highway. Before we finish, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when a complete stranger, or someone unexpected, changed your life with a simple act of kindness? Share your story in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, reminded you to appreciate the people in your life, or encouraged you to believe in second chances again, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to Dad's Second Chance. Your support helps these stories reach people who may need hope today more than ever. Thank you for spending these moments with us, and remember this simple truth: sometimes the road that seems completely broken is the very road that leads us home.